of you have actually been to BHIVE Workspace before? Just raise your hand. Okay, so what was the experience like? General, anything you would want to say about it? Okay, okay. Did you attend any of the events? Okay, okay, all right, good. So as you all know, so we are actually a co-working space. We operate from 5 locations in Bangalore. So a good number of them are coming up as well. And we are the largest of its kind in Bangalore. So this is a platform for entrepreneurs, freelancers, SMEs, small startups, even organizations to come and work harmoniously under one roof, collaborate as well. So it's specifically designed, as a flexible workspace and is designed for productivity as well. So today we are basically going to talk about sharing economy. So that's the topic. So BuzzFest, as you all know, is a quarterly flagship of BHIVE. And, we've come up with topics, mostly, looking at how the audience has been reacting to certain things, our posts, our events. So we decided to come up with sharing economy this time. So sharing economy is also synonymous with, collaborating consumption, as you all know. So how many of you took Ola or Uber to come to this event today? Raise your hands. Oh, wow. And everyone else? Like private transport? Okay. So Uber, as you also know it, has been a benchmark for sharing economy. And sharing economy technically is now synonymous with Uberization. That's a term which is born out of that entire concept of Uber. So it all started because, we live in an era of copious amount of cyber and non-cyber information. And this is the time we actually, optimally utilize the resources for our needs. And sharing economy, the phenomenon was born out of the fact that, people at this point of time realized that they had to regulate their consumption because they didn't want to be victims of hyperconsumption. And that is how the entire concept of sharing economy first came into place. So we have a lot of interesting, panel discussions and all, as you all know. It's all over the social media. And, that's something which we're actually focusing on this time. So, yeah, please come. So in the meantime, I would like to, extend my gratitude to all the sponsors. So Edureka is our principal sponsor. Thank you so much. This event, I can clearly see it's just like house full. It's so good to see everyone over here. And 48 East is the food partner. And Yourstory and Tech in Asia are our media partners. And our outreach partners are TIE, Indian Angels Network, NASCOM, Zivasa, Vodafone, Reliance, Jio, that has also been there. And I think now we should go for the panel. Yeah. So we are starting the panel discussion. So the first discussion that is there. So, we have the stellar lineup of speakers who are actually on board for this. All of them have come up? Just wait for a bit. Yeah, so the first topic... So the first panel discussion, the topic is Don't Own, Just Share. That's a way forward for Indian economy. So I'm going to introduce the speakers And please come on stage. We have Gaurav Arora, who's the head of startup ecosystem APAC Amazon. Please come on stage, Gaurav. Aravind Sanka, who's the co-founder at Rapido. Rohin Pinto, who is head of Karnataka of Oyo Rooms. Please come, Rohin. Shah Gehlot, who is the head of or the founder at MyIndianStay. Share.The, who's the co-founder at BHIVE Workspace. And Jitendra Jagadev, who's a co-founder at Nestaway. The stage is all yours. And we also have the moderator, who's Sindhu Kashyap, and she's a senior correspondent at Yourstory. Yourstory.
There are a lot of stages here already.
You guys be very careful with the fan.
That would be my Jennifer Robinson. Yeah, I'm good. Hey, can we have a mic here? Thank you so much for start up with the mics that work. That's for grabs. But in any case. Okay, so thank you for braving the Bangalore traffic and coming here. So we have a huge panel here. We're keeping the conversation really free-flowing and easy. And post that, if you guys have any questions, you can ask any of the panelists that. So I think we'll start with brief introductions from all of you and a basic idea of your idea and your opinion of shared economy in the Indian context per se. I think we'll start with you.
Sure. Hi everyone. I'm Jitendra here, College Jitu. So I one of the co-founders of Nestaway. Nestaway we started 2 years back. One of the pioneers in the shared economy as such, because we were the first to start shared living as such in India and elsewhere. From last 2 years, we have grown to like serving now 30,000 people staying with us today, and across 12 cities in India. And the good part that I would say that after we started in India, there are people who have mirrored us in China and US. So it's little other way around where like we have been followed in elsewhere. And what we believe is like the world is moving much more towards shared economy where the costs, what we call like collaborative consumption of things, right? So basically people can share things, peer-to-peer lending and sharing of things. So we started what we believe like sharing of houses to start with. From there, today where we sit, people share their living costs, they share their utility, even they actually share the movie ticket costs. So that's where we have reached, and we aim to reach further. And our aim or vision is to be the largest virtual city of the world, where we host 1 million people staying with us every night. Thanks.
That's it. Thanks, Jitu. I'm Shesh Paplikar. I'm one of the co-founder of BeeHive and also the CEO. I think some of you would be familiar that you're already in BeeHive. So our focus is essentially how to deliver a quality workspace experience for a larger section. I think we all know that we all crave that Google or a Facebook has got an amazing office, right? Be it a productive environment or a community or an office where I would go and everything works, I can focus on my work. That's something which is not always available for a larger section, be it smaller companies or even companies with 100 size, etc. And also, how do you manage the costs, efficiency, etc. So that's the problem we're solving, and that way is the whole focus is where we can utilize the resources better through technology, processes, etc. and deliver this awesome experience for the larger section, larger workforce of the world. And I think one thing I always remember is Jitu, and we started our company almost at the same time. So Jitu, I didn't fully understand. He had not yet started operation when we had already started operation. He came to me and said, "You know what, Shesh, what you're doing for desk, we are doing beds." And I was thinking, what exactly does it mean? And now I understand.
Hi guys, Shan here. I think one nest away has already solved the living problem. Trace is solving the working problem. So after you have lived somewhere, worked somewhere, MyIndianStay is solving where you want to travel next. So we started a couple of years back, first company in this space, vacation rentals. We started with one guest house in Goa, and now MyIndianStay has 40,000 rooms across India, from Leh Ladakh to Kanyakumari. The whole idea is that when you are traveling, instead of staying in a box-shaped, boring room, you can stay in somebody's apartment, somebody's villas, cottage in Himachal Pradesh or a Haveli in Rajasthan. The whole idea was, as a starting idea, that India is very diverse. A good way to see it, not just by visiting the place as a tourist, but experiencing it with the locals, living with them. And that was the origination of the idea. So while you are getting these experiences, you are also sharing your moments with the family, with the people with whom you are staying with. The idea has matured quite a lot. We are now into managed services as well, where somebody owning a holiday home in Goa, they visit a couple of times in a year. Rest of the times, they have 100 friends around the world using the same space whenever they are traveling. So yeah, MyIndianStay is a small story about MyIndianStay. Before that, I graduated from IIT Bombay, started working as a financial trader, and that's how I ended up starting MyIndianStay.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I think I'm the third person who's solving the stage problem over here, right? So if this goes bad, you will end up fighting on stage. Okay, yeah. On a serious front, that would be very interesting. Yeah, so I am Rohin Pinto, and I'm part of the OYO team. I think most of you will probably know Ritesh. Yeah, I think he started off as a 17-year-old trying to solve this problem of whenever people travel to a different city, they would always find a friend or a family where they could crash in rather than check in into a hotel. And we started off a long way, around 3.5 years back, and we've scaled this journey in the last 1.5 to 2 years to touch close to around 70,000 odd rooms that we do have, and we cater to different class of customers. So that's what OYO does. On the shared economy, and I think the point which Sindhu was talking about earlier, I think before we open the floor, there are a couple of things that I'd like to say, and I think the more important part is the challenges that we face in India. More than always saying that India is open to the shared economy, I think it's about the challenges that India does face. And are we ready? Okay, I know that there is extremely a huge amount of potential. We have all the numbers going in our favor. But are we actually ready? And that's something that I'd like to put up as a point in discussion before we start the whole thing.
Good evening, everyone. This is Aravind, Sanka. I'm a co-founder of Rapido. Rapido is essentially a two-wheeler ride-sharing platform. So you might be traveling to office on a daily basis. Definitely one of the major problem is the traffic. So how will you go to your office by quick and also which is affordable? So that is what the pain point that we are solving. We are solving with India's most common man's vehicle, which is a two-wheeler. So we helped more than 70,000 people to travel within city in our last 1 year with the help of more than 10,000 bike riders who are ready to share their bikes. So we started a year back and we have grown. Right now we are executing more than around 3,000 rides on a daily basis. And one thing what we realized is people value for their time a lot. So if you are able to, that's the reason if people instead of buying an asset and maintaining it and maintaining it, it requires some more effort and more time than to just share with someone else. So that's where the Rapidos is one of the route. Rapido is the route to start to solve this commute problem.
Thanks.
I am Gaurav. I head the startup ecosystem initiatives across APAC for Amazon Web Services. Now, how many of you here know what AWS is? Most of you, right? Like, it might have sounded a misfit, amongst the founders or startups allowing, shared economy through their proposition versus a technology player. But if you think of it, AWS has been one of the pioneers of pay-as-you-go consumption model. So if you have ideas, you don't need to build your own servers, databases, you don't need to do all that heavy lifting. You just focus on your core business proposition and then leverage all these servers and the backend infrastructure stack through a utility basis. And if you think of the shared economy model and the drivers behind it, which you could probably categorize in 3 or 4 pillars, such as technology, social, economy. So we are the technology enablers. And for India also, this is what is actually leveling the playing field for all these Indian startups versus the big giants in the US, for example. Look forward to having interesting discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your introductions. It was quite great and nice to have your view. But if you look at sharing as a concept is not exactly new. From when you were kids, you were told to share stuff, whether it was your toys, books, clothes. You share your. If you are the younger sibling, you would know you don't get anything first hand. Everything is second hand, right? The economy bit comes when you add a layer of monetization to it. So before we get deeper into how difficult it is in India or how easy it is going to be in India to build a shared economy space, just wanted to understand from your perspectives of, how does the monetization per se and business models work for this whole concept of sharing and shared economy, whether it is stays or technology or bike sharing, ride sharing. It's kind of confusing at the moment. So how does that work?
It's a very interesting question, actually, especially in case of MyIndianStay, where the question of, let's say, an owner owning an apartment in Bombay or owning an apartment in Bangalore, they are getting a rental yield of around 2.5% is around Bombay. Same owner owning an apartment, let's say in Gurgaon or Delhi, gets a rental yield of around 1.5%. Similarly, few of the owners, which we have seen in Goa, whose properties are managed and rented out on a short-term basis, some of the owners are getting, on an average, these owners are getting a rental yield of around 4 to 5% and above. It's a very important question of monetization. When does an owner of any asset, whether it's transportation of a bike or a car, or let's say an office space or a homeowner, decides to choose or deviate from a conventional earning process? It happens when the alternate shared economy concept or monetization presents an income or a regular income that they can rely on. That's a trigger point. And that's an early stage learning that we realized, which helped us tremendously, and that helped us compete against larger players, much more funded players. And that is something very intrinsic in India. We understand economics really well. A lot of people think that technology is 3G doesn't work. When the case is of economics, we work around using our normal Nokia 3310 mobile phones as well. We learn how to share when we take our first train rides. A 3-seater train, all of us, I think, must have experienced sitting 4 people very comfortably. Imagine it's the same situation in France, a country maybe just 1/4 the size, but India has 10 times the population. Make these guys sit in a train and ask them to share it. France would be in a revolution once again. So, as a concept of sharing, intrinsically, we are much more compatible. But understanding that intrinsic monetary trigger point, which can enable any asset holder to generate an income higher than the conventional one, that has helped us tremendously to grow ourselves and that too in a bootstrap manner, and making a cash flow positive both for the customer, for the asset owner, and a platform level. So, yeah.
How does it work for renting? Something like renting.
Right. So for us, we more believe like sharing is the way to preserve cash. Right. So basically, if you have seen Friends way long back, they used to share rooms, right? Whether they say same flat, right? So by sharing, you could actually cut down your costs. You could save more, so that you have the money to do what you would always love to do. So that will give you the power of spending on things that you would think on investing on yourself. So like typically when we started in Bangalore, I remember like I came to this office to finalize office space. If you remember, right? So way back that time, like when we started in Bangalore, the security deposit here was 10 months. So we go back and so the biggest challenge was at Nesta we have 2 months of security deposit, because we believe that's a fundamental thing that should be there available, because it's just like removes your affordability to live a good life by paying 10 months of security deposit. So from there we started, and at a cost, like suppose a cook comes to your home, rather than one person paying for it, if there are 6 people who pay for it, that cost got shared. So from there it starts to internet everything. So today, if next time we have actually started something called like internet itself prepaid model, right? So at homes, if you log in, you have login password, you could actually pay as low as 50 rupees and use a 80 GB speed internet. So those are things only are possible if you have a very collaborative model where like collaborative consumptions can happen. So at a homeowner side, we give returns and all that. That is second. Primary thing is people who use us, they are happy that they save money.
So different perspective. So one is asset owners monetizing on those assets, but the other side of the story is that people who are consuming are now able to afford a lot more luxurious assets than they would have been able to if they were to buy those assets, right? And I think together, if you collaborate on these or join these dots, right, the net effect utilization for the economy drives a lot more economies of scale. Like co-working spaces like BHIVE is getting VC funded because it's a more viable business. The utilization factor as a fundamental thing is very good for the whole of the economy.
Right. From a technology perspective, when AWS first came and everything, like right now it's quite well known, as the audience know. But how does the concept work for something like an AWS or an Oreo or Rapido? How does it work like that?
So see, from technology perspective, most of the genesis of the AWS services started with our realization that we've mastered that. Is this not working? Yeah, I can hear myself better now. So see, the genesis of all this AWS started with we realizing that we have mastered managing these scalable data centers in our backend for the Amazon.com business itself. And then we at Amazon had a number of different business units who were trying to solve the same problem, and they had like similar requirements on servers and all. So this whole model of internally first decoupling and sharing the different modules within the company, which then led us to think this could be very interesting proposition for anybody outside AWS also. Right? And that's also now leading to most of the different services that we see coming on the platform. First tried and tested, build an expertise internally, then just don't keep it yourself. Don't own it totally, just share it with others. And the good thing, the beauty there is, once you share it with others, that multiplier effect kicks in. You see so many different applications or use cases of the same thing that you yourself would have not been able to do.
Hello. Yeah, it's a different kind of economics for our riders who are offering rides to our customers. So in India, there are a lot of underemployed and unemployed people who knows a skill of driving a bike. These are the guys whom we are targeting. Like if you just offer a ride while going to office, and if you're coming back to office, these guys increase their income level by almost 15 to 20%. And imagine if the same person is offering for one more hour when he's free. So we are improving his income levels, health, it's from livelihood of the family. I think that's a way that we are impacting the lives of people through a bike sharing.
Yeah, if I have to actually answer this or maybe summarize it, I think there are three ways in which this could be monetized. One, I think in a sharing economy, you take one case of an Uber or Rapido, it's definitely efficiency improvement. So Uber, which probably used to have, before Uber, Ola came into Bangalore, you had half the auto drivers driving all of us literally mad, haggling, and they would always, you'd think twice before taking an auto. And I think Ola and Uber have solved that problem to a large extent, and Rapido, have solved this problem to a large extent where they've improved efficiency. And I think that's the first model. The second, I think, which is very, very interesting, is the point which Nestaway has done, is about bringing down costs and increasing affordability. So similar to what Nestaway has done, and a couple of the other brands, where something which was aspirational today becomes affordable because it can be shared. You can rent it, you don't need to buy it. You have so many of the furniture companies, Folanco, for example. They're doing this. You probably thought 5 times before buying that cupboard, but today you can rent it. And the third and more important is what Find My Stay and Oyo have done, where we have given an opportunity of an unused inventory, which goes for nothing at the end of the day, to be reused or used in a way in which everyone makes money out of it. I think a very important aspect here is we were able to bridge the gap between supply and demand, and hence create more demand for it. And that's the way we've been able to monetize that.
Just a bit on when we speak about monetization and scales, economies of scale, like you were mentioning, India has a massive population size, number of people here are huge, but as a country we have always been owning apna gadi, apna ghar, that's been a very thing, but you see that consumer shift happen slowly. So a bit on your understanding of how long it's going to take, or how difficult the process has been to bring in that basic shift, because you still don't see it in everyone. You just see it in the younger generation. You still have your parents telling you, why don't you buy a house, or why don't you buy that car, buy your own furniture. There's a certain mindset associated with even renting furniture, for that matter, or a homestay in that sense. So how do you break that mindset, and how does it work in that?
I think one of the important aspect is that there is definitely, I think the evolution of technology, and he's definitely changing the consumer behavior. And overall, even though given the topic, I wouldn't say don't own at all, but there is obviously somebody has to own it. So if nobody owns it, we don't have anything. So the question really is, I think it should really shift towards a mechanism where the people who are owning it are better at financial control. They are looking it as an investment. Right, they have analytics behind it, because there can be platform like Nestaway, Oyo Rooms, etc., which is going to tell them this is the kind of return I can make. So I think ownership is really best left to people who are more efficient at owning this and getting returns out of it. This really prevents wrong investment and better utilization of the resources in the world, which should obviously, a better investor is going to create more and more resources, which platforms like ours can exploit. Right, coming to the other side of it. Now the question is, to really experience something, do I really need to own? I think that is an aspect which is changing, right? There were times when people would rent a very small house. I know people living in very, very small house, and then they build a big house, when their kids are almost about to leave their home, right? Right. So now I think the things are changing, where people have realized that, to be able to meet my aspiration, I don't necessarily need to own, right? It's an experience, and that whole behavior shift is happening, where people are totally fine, not to own a house or a car. At the end of the day, this is the experience I'm getting. So this distinction also, I think, as Jitu and all pointed out, will also make them more and more efficient, right? At a very early stage of a career, I start buying so many things, and then I realize, hey, I can't afford it, and I sell off my car and try to buy a smaller car. A lot of these inefficiencies would happen, but now the whole inefficiency is sort of reduced to a large extent. I think that will make people make wiser decisions.
The challenge of bringing that mindset change initially, that's been a task for many. Even today, it's still a task. So how do you bring that in?
So we keep on doing surveys to get more consumer feedbacks and all that. So pretty interesting insights, like one of the guy that we spoke to recently, he stays at Nestaway Prestige Santiniketan. That's one of the good properties around Bangalore. So he stays there. So yeah, so basically I was just tracking his Facebook timeline, right? So he stays at Prestige Santiniketan. he regularly uses Ola and Uber to commute to office. There are a lot of photographs in his timeline which shows he uses sometimes Mercedes, sometimes BMW for his weekend rides. Okay, and very luxurious life. So we made and understood like what is your income and how is the expenditure. So he told his monthly net income per month is 45,000 rupees and his outgoing expenditure is 55,000 rupees. So these are the millennials which are talking about, right? So people have gone into a state where people like perhaps my generation, as we like we are the old generations now. So preferably we would think of Prestige Antiniketan, okay, when you are earning like 3 lakhs per month, okay, you afford Prestige Antiniketan, right? So people have gone into that affordability, first thing. Second thing is like people tend to aspire for things which they want to get at much earlier stage rather than owning it. So I think after this feedback, we also introduced in NestAway that you could pay secure deposit through EMIs. So today actually every money, even your rent is payable by EMIs because we know there are people whose incomes are less than their expenses. So things have changed drastically, right? So before these things didn't actually exist, but now you see Zoomcar is there, where you see. So we were talking to some of the Zoomcar things like Zoomcar average salaried people who are there is like 30,000-40,000 users. So that has changed and that has drastically changed.
I think what you were also alluding to is a cultural mind shift, right? And I can think of two things there. One is the ease of renting out those assets, which is enabled by like EMI kind of platforms, or also the whole technology layer on top of it. So if you have a car, if you want to rent it out, it should be very easy for you to rent it out for a weekend drive, or if you're renting out a car for Uber or whatever, Ola. So I think that has been fundamentally changing the mindset of a lot of asset owners, right? And the other piece, I think, is somewhere on the insurance or the coverage. I think some of you could probably talk about like this whole fear of, will my asset be misused, right? So something I think, like for example, on the insurance, car coverage and all, some of you can talk about the trust factor, yeah. Yeah.
Home, for example.
Yeah.
Still have so many questions asked.
Exactly.
Whenever
Exactly.
a millennial goes to rent a house,
Yeah.
are you going to get boys in? Are you going to get girls in? Is there going to be parties? So that mindset is still.
Yeah, I think there are several measures being put in by a lot of companies like these, and there was last piece I was thinking of. It also depends on the use case. If you're looking for like interim use case of an asset, which is like for a short period of time, pay as you go definitely serves the best purpose. But if you're like thinking of some stationary asset which doesn't need like constant refresh and things like that, then there is the other equation coming in, whether you'd be better off totally owning it at some point of time.
I would like to include one more point is that yes, everything is going in the positive direction, but just a caution is that it needs to be sustainable. Sustainable for the end user, for the asset owner, as well as the end consumer as well. We have seen in case of Uber, Ola, and I'm not sure maybe with Rapido as well, that for last couple of, let's say, quarters, the driver incentives have gone down. So the incentive for the asset owner earlier was not real. It was artificial just to bring in the demand. The reasons could be very different. But going forward, the caution has to be there that it needs to be very, very sustainable. How we are building this whole process. Though we are very, very quick adopters, but these shocks can affect. So maybe I think that could be one topic that we might discuss.
Right. I think
Just 2 points I'd like to add. I think one is the fact that owning something today is still seen as a status symbol. And I think that's something we haven't touched about. I think people still love to say my car, my house. And while sharing is definitely there, it's there for convenience, you use it for a lot of other things. You still at the end of the day want that my factor in it. And I think it's a personal choice. I don't think it'll ever go away. That's the one thing. The second thing is the point which you had mentioned about on two things which I personally feel are holding us back. One is the trust factor, when you move across, and the second is the predictability. Because with every new shared economy company that has come in, the first experience is sometimes good, the second is not always that good. And I think building that culture is something that we need as an ecosystem to work towards.
Just to add one point to discuss about monetization and all. So one way why people are sharing, a lot of users in either Rapido or maybe some other company, they own their own vehicle. There are people who own their own bikes, but still they order a Rapido and sit back and then go to their office. It's because one thing that they have seen is the time that they are wasting on the traffic. It's better to sit back and do their work, either to listen to music or listen to maybe some videos or do something by sitting back. And this is what that we have seen in people slowly in terms of they compare with the amount of money that they can either earn with the free time. Should I drive it or should I do something else? Right now they are accessible to data, accessible to information. What else can I do or what else should I learn so that I can improve in my lifestyle? I think these are some of the things which are also a factor in while people choosing between sharing or owning a vehicle. That's what I want to add.
Shish, this is specifically for you and to understand from your perspective. You have been in New York, you've been in the US where co-working as such is an evolved concept and even sharing as a concept is quite evolved. What do you think can come to India in that perspective? What can India learn? How is it different? How are the markets different in that sense? And how are the people different? More than the markets, I think it's the people who make up the market. So how are the people different?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. Yeah, one is I have spent good amount of my time in US. I was in New York. I've experienced some of the things like co-working space there. One of the things I would see the difference is a shared economy is something that is definitely evolving in advanced countries like US. It's also evolving in a developing economy like India. The big difference is I see that it's probably, I personally feel that the evolution will be much more stronger in a country like India. The reason being that the inefficiencies are and the trouble people go in setting up things or getting an efficient service is a lot more difficult in India than in US. I think the simple example is, let's say I'm an entrepreneur, I have a startup of 2 people. It's a lot more easy in US, to sit in an apartment where you wouldn't see power cut, be it water trouble or an internet problem. These basic things itself is pretty much given in the US, no FUP limits on internet. So even those basics are a lot more difficult to have in India. So I do see that, giving a co-working space to an extent is also, one is obviously a sharing economy like US where better cost and economies of scale and all that is brought in. But beyond that, the efficiency for the end customer itself is quite different, which is very much true, which I think many others pointed out, be it Oyo, be it Nestaway, etc. Before, having Nestaway, I know people would probably rent an apartment and sleep on the floor, right? Which was not really uncommon, because, hey, I don't want to buy the bed because in 3 months I might be leaving Bangalore. So these kind of things are really sort of changing. And the people itself, I think, definitely now see that there is no point. I think, in 10 years back, it was so much common that people would take a place and sleep on floor. But now the consumers are changing. And I think people here are as aspirational as anything. I think after coming back of living in US in 8 years, I could see that sometimes I feel, people are a lot more aspirational in India. And given that there is, I think other difference is ability, labor is cheaper and the ability to, bridge that gap is definitely exists. That arbitrage is there. And I think that's what we all are sort of, dipping into.
Just your last thoughts on, how startups, the infrastructure, technologically wise and otherwise as well, can work towards building a stronger shared economy in India. Last thoughts, and then we'll open it up to the audience for questions.
So, share economy has just started. As we know, the monetization part, rather the demonetization part has been more recent, right? So the good part of that is people have tried to understand this, right? So around 15 days back, I was in Delhi meeting some government officials who had called me to understand how sharing economy works in India. So that's the progress, right? So suppose now people are opening up to understand how this is working because they understand a significant part of the economy is evolving in this space. So where we see this going is miles away, where we are telling like actually you don't own anything. You start living your life, right? So we can imagine like people staying at Nestaway, working at BHIVE, taking a Rapido to home. When they're taking a vacation, they go on Oyo. So this is what is happening, and it is just at the start, right? It's just evolving, and we see a formidable future ahead where much of this tendencies are actually coming up. Like in US, it's very common, right? So TaskRabbit was there 10 years back, 8 years back in US, right? So US shared economy is much more evolved. That's the reason like Airbnb, like this year, what I was hearing, like they have crossed $2.2 billion in just in revenues. The $2.2 billion that we're talking about is purely shared revenues, right? Because so those things are working well in US, and definitely India is catching up in a big way.
I think I should give an opportunity for.
Just finish the last one.
Yeah, I think to summarize to an extent, be it a developed country or be it a developing country like India, the demand for better services definitely exists, and I think the way we solve it, the challenges we face might be different, but the awareness is definitely growing, and aspirational to have the quality service is always there. And that does open up room for all of us, be it Rapido, be it OA rooms, be it going on a vacation, so all of these, quality is definitely expected, and that's going to only drive this kind of a model more and more, where we have the ability to get the capital, we have the ability to create the technology or the operations and deliver that high-end, high-quality service.
Yeah, I think while we are there, because I was just talking some time back, and we have all the numbers going. If you look at it, I think by 2022, I mean, what numbers I've picked up, 65% of India is going to be below 35. I mean, we're talking about this whole generation going through this whole, stage where everything is changing around them, and I think it's going to be a case where shared economy goes ahead. However, I personally feel there are 3-4 big bottlenecks. I think the infrastructure part, which he spoke about, government regulation, and I think while the ecosystem has moved ahead, I think the decision makers, that is the government bodies, the authorities, these kind of people are still waking up to that. And I think once we get these things combined in together, it will definitely move on much faster, because India is a very different market, and scale is always there for us. So it's very difficult for something to go wrong, because you always will have scale. The only challenge you see is competition.
Yeah, slowly what we have realized after working for almost a year is, on the sharing part, right now technology is not a lot of differentiator right now. It's more like become like a necessity. Anyone should follow the technology, and it should be very accessible to each and everyone who wants to share or who wants to take a ride. So on the other important thing, that on the culture thing that has been changed a lot is, right when we are started, we thought, okay, let's start it only for male. Let's not maybe start for female. But what we have realized is there are more than 10 to 15% of our customers who are female. So this is one of the major culture shift, I should say, that a female sitting back of either a male rider, or there is a male rider who is taking male customers with her. So I think it has been evolved. I think still we are at very nascent stage. There are more than 100 million bikes already on the ground, and there are more than 300 million rides that are happening daily basis. So I think there is a lot to be done, and because of there are a lot of technology changes, right? Either call it as a digital cash, or you call it as a geo, which has enabled internet to each and everyone. I think as going forward, as the technology enhances, the sharing economy will evolve much more larger, right? From the guys who are earning a lot to someone in the middle class to middle class, and also a type 2 cities.
So I think on the monetization, it's quite intuitive. There's a lot of demand also. All that is good. The only two things that will drive this momentum forward, one is on the technology, UI, UX experience, and the second is the trust factor. I think together we all need to collaborate on that and take this together ahead. And one thing which we didn't sort of touch upon is also the environmental benefits of, like, if you are carpooling to the office, there is this lot of greater good cause to that. And just to quote my last words on this panel, like even I have a 3-year-old, and even in the kindergarten, all these rhymes they teach sharing is caring. So let's live up to that.
Thank you so much. I'm sure, yeah, we're coming to that. We'll come to that. Thank you so much. I'm sure it's been an insightful experience for everyone over here. This has been absolutely fabulous. I would like to remind you of two things. First of all, taking a cue, from our subject of sharing economy, you can share your views, your perceptions on Twitter and on other social media. The hashtag is BuzzFest, or you can even use the hashtag ShareInIndia. On Twitter, it's @BHIVE Workspace. So please share it, on every portal that you know. And two most active Twitterati would also win goodies from BHIVE Workspace, which is also sponsored by Rapido. So, just get clickety. And we are taking also feedback. So there are two media for it. One, you can give it at the exit, and another, like at the end of the entire thing. Our volunteers will be going around and taking feedback from people who are interested to give it. So please share your feedback with us. And from this panel discussion, we are taking, 3 questions. So please keep it concise and to the point. Okay.
Hi, I'm Sumit. My question is primarily to the startups who are working on hospitality side. Question being that the supply side is always a bit of challenge in India because there are so many permutation combinations of factors that come in terms of quality, the perspective of the asset owner in terms of what exactly it becomes and so on and so forth. So what exactly is the way forward on that? It's a more of, I travel a lot, but every time I book up something, I realize that 80% of the time the experience, especially in guest houses or rentals, is different from what exactly I expected, right? So what's the way around on manage around that, specifically in Indian context where we have the cultural differences across the space?
Yeah, so I think this is one of the biggest problems we do face today. Last year, year before last, while we grew really fast, this was one mistake we made in terms of trying to, how do you standardize the experience at different locations? I think one of the solutions that comes out here is actually going much, much deeper than what meets the eye. Because the person who's actually doing your room or taking care of that experience is a young boy who's probably never gone to school. He's probably traveled out of his hometown to reach a place to find a job, and he's just doing it for that salary that he does get. The first thing we have tried doing is actually trying to change the way they live. Because, for him, it doesn't make a difference if it's a white bed sheet, as long as it's a bed sheet, that's fine. I mean, in the way he stays, he doesn't even get a bed sheet. And I think bringing that discipline in the way they live is something that we are, I'd say, working towards. I don't think we are there yet. We are definitely working towards. The second thing that we are working towards is we've set up a center in Delhi where we've partnered with the National Skills Institute. And we're going to be imparting training in terms of to people who would want to do something with their lives, but they don't know what to do. So instead of running, catching a train, reaching the station, getting caught by a tout or an agent and being put into some line of work which he or she doesn't want to do, we get that person to come in. And I think that's the fundamental change that we are working towards in how we could change that particular problem.
I think especially for vacation rentals, it's a very, very important question. Hitting the nail on the head. We are taking a little different approach than OYOs. Here, we cannot skill and train every and anybody out there. we are a small startup. We have to focus on our exact problem. And we learn, I think Uber is a very good example. Same exact taxi drivers who used to drive taxis take you or me around in a similar car, old car, but now the same car is better managed. These guys are better or well spoken. I think processes plays very important aspects. Especially if you book a vacation rental via Airbnb, House Trip, 9 Flats, or Vimdo in Europe or in US or HomeAway, culturally, people in the West are a bit more organized than India. You will get exact directions. This metro, 300 meters, take this bus, walk 200 meters, turn left here, this is the code, go here, this. We have on our platform properties from 500 rupees a night to 50,000 rupees a night. Infrastructure-wise, top class properties are there. We had early on seen that, and we experienced that exact same problems, that a 25,000 rupee a night property, everything is 5-star. A customer books a property, and a small thing, a toilet roll is missing in the toilet. These small things kind of reduces the whole guest experience. But all these things, how we focus is process-wise. So there is a training process which we guide our host through that. Of course, not all properties can be managed personally by us. Another line of business vertical is where the properties are managed by our company. So the owners are there, sitting in New York, London, Bombay or Delhi, owning a holiday home apartment in Goa, marketed by MyIndianStay, managed by a different vertical, with the specialized services. Property managers are there. And these property managers with the housekeeping team, these guys welcomes the guest, gives a tour of the property to the guest and show them, and all these things are done through processes. The next step, again, we are taking a learning from Uber. The property manager on MyIndianStay will be eliminated by an app. How you do an online check-in in an airplane, in a similar way on our properties, any and every guest would be able to do an online check-in just through an app. You book a property, you go to the apartment, there is nobody who would be delivering you or handing over you a key, a physical key. Your mobile phone will work as a key, and this is already happening in some of the test properties. Rest, right now we haven't figured it out, is the housekeeping stuff. How can we even automate or even standardize that until unless if the robot, there are some vacuum powered robots are there. Uber has done the driverless cars, but we will reach there some way.
How you guys are planning for the tier 2 cities, because sharing economy in the tier 1 cities is okay, but how you guys are gonna expand your things in the tier 2 cities? Yeah, that's my question.
Especially for MyIndianStay, actually, after all we are a business, so we focus where the business is. And that is completely a business decision. So we are very strong in leisure destinations. How we affect tier 2 population is when these guys are coming to Goa or Himachal or Leh, Ladakh or any of the Kerala cities. That's when they get exposed. And similarly, smaller cities, if there is a potential, then yes, we would be present there.
I think, yeah, so this is something, I keep getting asked quite often, be it, when we talk to media or investors, etc. So, as Sean pointed out, I think we are after all a business at the end of the day. We are not government in that sense where I would want to just go to a village just for a social cause. We have investors to answer to. So at the end of the day, if it makes business sense for us, obviously there is a value we are providing to the society by creating co-working space. It helps the startup ecosystem. There's better infrastructure that's coming in. But I don't see that very immediately. I think as a business, as a decision, I think first is all about us surviving and being able to do well to our investors. So from that perspective, from BHIVE's perspective itself, we don't very much see the opportunity is so high for a BHIVE to be at a tier 2 city now. I think the first is to go to the larger cities where similar experiences like create in Bangalore can be created. And if it really, I think the analytics tell us that it makes business sense to go to a tier 2 city. At the end of the day, it's not about tier 2 city. If it makes sense to go to that city for my business, we would definitely go there.
Same here, right? So basically, today we are present in 13 cities, but most of them are like tier 1. Tier 1 as such, if you see like Indian GDP, top 10 cities contribute to 85% of the GDP. So volume also goes that way, but we have not been afraid of kind of venture into some strategic places. Like we are planning to start recently in Vijayawada, because like there is a requirement of 40,000 people who need to move from Hyderabad to Vijayawada. So if there is strategic interest, obviously Vijayawada falling into tier 2, we are there. We are there today in Ghaziabad, we are there in Faridabad, those locations. We are planning to start in Kota, which is tier 5 perhaps, but it's a strategic decision, end of the day.
For a market like Rapido, it's like people travel in each and every city. It's not only a metro city, the people will travel. People travel in tier 1 and also a tier 2 city. But one of the very good part for us is the supply availability is there irrespective of which city that you go. The two-wheelers are more penetrated in rural areas than in urban areas. The amount of guys who are owning a two-wheelers. So I think we need to spend a lot of energy on how to send them information about a sharing economy, how to educate them about this. If you are able to do that, then I think the only thing that can work in tier 2 city is a two-wheeler than a four-wheeler. So I think we are betting a lot on two-wheeler market in tier 2 city. So, but we are yet to launch in any other city, but we will be there in some other tier 2 city soon.
Yeah, I think we are already there in most tier 2, but I think the challenge that does come, and I think as everyone touched upon it, is about how you make it a sustainable business. So it's very easy to start off there, but I think working a different model such that you bring down operational costs would be, making it succeed in a tier 2 by bringing down operational costs would be a challenge, which is something which I think each company would work towards differently.
Just to add to it, I think if the problem doesn't exist, there's no point solving for it. So for some of us, it might be.
Hi, my name is Arun and I run a startup in the sharing economy space, and it's all exciting, all good, etc. But I want to specifically touch upon a point. That Jitendra and Rohin mentioned, which was about the government regulations mirroring this sector, right? So does it make sense for, especially because it's the government regulations and they're a little slow on catching up to what the sharing economy does. Does it make sense for sharing economy companies to come together and have a body or such which provides a single voice for the entire economy? Because that's something that, for example, e-commerce never had, right? They were bickering within each other. Whereas sharing economy, let's probably live up to the name of a sharing economy and share within each other. Because secondly, just one more thing is also because the consumers also, right? Everyone connected. The same guy living in Oyo rooms will be doing a Rapido, doing different things. So a consumer gained in one of those companies is technically a consumer gained in the entire sector. So that was a point which I wanted to ask, and if something can be done on that.
So just to brief you on that is like there is already a body for that, right? I am just forgetting IMITA or something. I can get back to on that, which is actually a conglomeration where Ola, Uber, Stagila, most of the people are already present today. Internet Mobile Association of India or something like that. Exactly, I can't recollect, but that's an association which formally kind of today pitches to the government, and that actually tries to collaborate on the common problems, mostly related to regulations, state bylaws, right? So those type of typical things, taxes. So that was the IMI it's called. So that was majorly driving GST across startups. How does the startup policies are there? So that exists today, and mostly we can actually all be part of that. That's actually working.
It's not industry specific.
Yeah, it's not industry specific. But most of the so the good part of it is like it's working out to a large extent. India, the benefit is like unless you are a large scale, the government doesn't wake up. So you have a leeway till you kind of become a multi-billionaire. Then perhaps, so then the problem starts. So till then we are safe. Like so, till 2 years you are safe actually, not a problem.
No, we actually didn't put up 3. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for this discussion. Okay, to extend our gratitude, from BHIVE, there are goodies for every one of you.
So we have this.